Welcome back, everybody. I've got here today the Dauntless from Kotori Audio. They are about finished with their Kickstarter, so I'm going to try to get this one out first in case anybody is interested. Before I start giving you my impressions, I do want to disclaim that they did give this product to me for free to sample. Now, apart from saving, $70 or whatever it was that I would have had to pay myself, they didn't give me any money to do this. This is not sponsored. I'm not getting any special commission or anything from this if you buy it, okay? They just gave me a free sample. So I'm going to be as honest as I ever try to be. All right, with that being said, what do I think about this product? Starting with the accessories and cable, which I always like to do before I just hop into the sound. It's pretty straightforward. It's a very simple box. They're very clearly a startup, and they're very clearly trying to put all their money into the research and development of the drivers. That seems to be proprietary to their house. It even says it's a 10mm Japanese dynamic driver. Now, I'm not sure what that means specifically, what makes it Japanese. I don't have my full background on this researched, but it does say that the material is made out of PU and PEEK composite membrane. And I was reading marketing material and from other people talking about it in the comments that it was supposed to be different, like something unique. So it has a lot of attention on it from people who are IEM listeners for the idea that it could be something different than what we've heard before, especially at this price point. There is a box. It's a very simple carrying case. It's a basic kind of more or less soft, semi-hard shell with a little compartment to put tips, or maybe you put your two buds in there and let the wires wrap around in the rest of the case. So the case gets the job done. I'm not sure if it'll really fit in the pocket terribly well. It's kind of wide, but a backpack is just fine. These days, people have their own preferred cases anyway, so I probably wouldn't use that case personally. But yeah, it's just a case. It's whatever. The cable is very, cheap, very cheap. It's kind of this run-of-the-mill, plasticky, kinks in random places, kind of tangles itself up. You kind of have to do that, like, untangle, thing with your fingers. I'm not going to remark on whether or not it's better or worse in terms of sound quality delivery. I still don't know what I think about cables and sound quality, but I definitely would replace the cable personally for something that I prefer instead. Links in the description and all that. In terms of the sound quality, the Kotori Dauntless are very splashy, and I mean that in like the upper end bright area. It sounds kind of rough. It sounds not necessarily bad, okay? I think some people are actually going to really like how splashy, how high end and bright it sounds in its tuning style. Okay, it does not have a thumpy bass. It has bass, like it still technically does present it, but I think it probably presents the bass and this whole sub bass, mid bass, the whole bass region does appear, regardless of which region you're talking about within the bass area. It sounds like it's trying to be a more reference level, just very neutral, but there. It does not make you tap your head, like bob your head up and down and tap the floor because you're feeling impact from the low end. It just isn't there like that. But it is clean for what is presented. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, there you go. Personally, under this price range of under like $100, or let's say under $200 or $300, I would push for something like the Obsidian or the Timeless, just based on my overall enjoyment factor. In the past, I considered myself a bright, biased person. I didn't traditionally love things with a lot of bass. I had found in the past that my perceived detail that I got from headphones or earphones was worse when things tried to pump up the bass. It usually had a bloom. Like I'm thinking of Fio products tended to do that for me for the couple that I tried. I didn't try all Fio stuff out there. Lately I've been really into bass prominent things that do bass well, whether it's a low, lush sound like the Melee or the Timeless, or it's a slightly higher end of the bass, maybe low mids, where it gets a little thumpier and punchier. I've really grown to appreciate when it's presented well. And these, for me, coming from that reference point, are a tough sell, because it's just a personal thing. I've just been enjoying those personally myself so much. But I think if you're somebody who wants a cleaner, more polite, pulled back bass, more like a reference, then these are pretty good in that area. In terms of the mid presentation, most of the instruments, male vocals, it's fine. Again, I think they're playing it pretty safe there. Nothing stands out to me in a way that I want to comment on particularly, which could be saying something. I'm not getting a strong forward presentation of any particular tracks in those moments that I love. I'm not getting like a big pop in the snare drums or anything like that. I'm not getting a male vocalist in a rock track that sings above the noise, the busyness of the rock. I'm not getting those standout moments. But what I do get is this, because it's so laid back in the thumpy and low-end nature, it leans so much towards the brighter side, it sounds like it has a lot of splash. It sounds like it's extremely airy and exciting in the upper end. But the thing is, there's a problem with trying to be bright, is that if somebody has a really, really strong, bright piece of gear, like I do with the HD800 and the, heck, even the Monger T, it was particularly bright and in a fun way. It was a little wonky. It didn't sound natural all the time, but it was fun despite taking that risk with the timbre, the natural, authentic timbre of things. In this case, though, the Dauntless it's not wonky. In that way, you could say it's better than the T as far as bright-leaning IEMs can go. But when you come from things that are so good in their flavor and their styling, it's difficult to go for something that is more or less, to me, in my ear, just kind of splashy and bright without being exceptional above what else is out there. Now, if you're like, okay, immediately I'm not sold on it because Dan says he's not into, like, compared to other stuff. Okay, fine. But we're talking about completely different price points. And I have to be honest with that. Even though objectively, like, compared to the best of the best, regardless of price, I would put these at like a flat B or even B minus, I still think that for $70, you might want to look at what else is at $70 that's also bright to compare it to. So I'm thinking of a lot of KZs and Blondes. How would they compare to those that try to play more flat and more bright in some cases? Depending on which model you're talking about, I think these are going to be more enjoyable. They are so light on their feet. And I don't think that they're as clear. I don't think, though, that they are as clean. I've seen a lot of comments. I've seen reviews already. I try not to look at reviews. I try to make my own opinion, but I can't help myself sometimes. And I saw someone comment in a review that they thought these were extremely clean. And I would kind of disagree. I think for $70, they do a great job. But are they going to be as polished as something like the MEST or something else? No. So I want to speak very objectively about this stuff. If I could tell you that something is very clean, I mean they're clean regardless of price. And for their price, they are relatively clean, but they're not like objectively in the grand scheme of things clean, okay? I do think that because it's probably I think it's just the one driver. Maybe that's it, or maybe it's just the way that they pushed the upper end. It does sound sometimes a little too excited for its own good in that upper end. It actually really reminds me of, even though it's a different style of it, it really reminds me, the closest thing possible actually is the Starfield from Moondrop, which was similarly priced as well, around the $100 price point, give or take, $20, $30. And it's also wanting to be very bright. So if I had to compare this against anything, it would be the Moondrop Starfield. And I think against the Starfield, they're a little bit more appetizing. They're a little more tolerable because the Starfield was extremely splashy and to the point where it was like fatiguing, like it was shouting at you if you put on a busy track. These are not as fatiguing, but they still have a rough, splashy nature to them and that upper end where you could, as you can see here, I put foam tips on them from Campfire Audio because I just couldn't deal with the silicone well enough. It was a little too rough. And when I put foam tips on them, it really helped smooth out some of those edges that I wasn't really tolerating with silicone. But they are still kind of, you still hear that general like core nature of roughness on the upper end. You know, this is a very mixed bag. I think some people are going to genuinely be honest when they say that they love these. I totally see where they could be coming from. They like the clean bass, even though it's low. They like the clean mids, even though it's not prominent or very forward and exciting either. And they like the upper end because it sounds somewhere in the upper mids or treble helping it out. I'm not sure where, but it's very clearly playing more with the bright side. You might be into that for the budget. Maybe you're not looking into the T, the Monger T, because it's more than 2 or 3 times the cost. This might be the perfect one for you. And it has a good seal, especially if you use foam tips. The nozzle itself is this it's a longer nozzle than other brands tend to do. So they really did seem to be mindful of trying to get the length of the thing long enough that it really went inside your ear. So seal will not be an issue for most people's ears. And they have a very generally comfortable shape with the way that the grooves form with your outer ear. So I think generally overall it's a solid set. I like the style. I think I can appreciate where the sound profile is coming from. I myself do appreciate bright gear, but when it comes to bright stuff, I've heard the best, and I know that these are not the best. They are not going, I don't think, for me personally, they make me want to ditch my other stuff that's $200 or $300. It certainly doesn't make me want to ditch my $1,400 Unique Melody MEST. But if I wanted something bright and I was in a budget, these are a pretty safe pick. Okay? This is going to be hit or miss. I think some people are going to be a miss. I think some people, even if you like bright stuff, you might hear it and it might just not be your flavor of bright and splashy. It might be like, if it was like me, it might be just a little off kilter for what you would want, even with foam tips. You might want something a little smoother. Problem is the budget market just really doesn't have a lot of competition against that particularly bright signature. Most stuff in the budget range tries to play a lot more balanced or towards the low end that I've noticed. It's a competitor in a niche that may not be filled, and it's doing it relatively well considering the cost. But still, ultimately, a B- or B for me at most. Please leave a comment, subscribe, like, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I do give away to my supporters on Patreon something once a month, so something to consider. All right, see you for the next one.